Hello guys, hello. Oh, that was loud. Hello and welcome to episode 17 of Chai with Rai. Hi, this is Rai. Hope you're doing well. Hope your Thursday is looking great. Hope your week was great. We're one day away from Friday and a couple of days away from the weekend, but I hope all is doing well. Thank you for tuning into my show. Thank you for supporting. I'm just really grateful for this passion project of mine that I started a couple of months ago, and it's turned into just something amazing. It's like this digital jukebox where I collect stories from people that I know or people that I do not know, but their work I've admired, and they have some beautiful stories to share, things to share, and things that we can all learn from. And that is what this is. So make sure to check everything out. I keep saying that I'm going to pop this on Spotify, but what I'm doing now is I've just been busy. I'm going to create, and oh my God, I'm stumbling. I'm so nervous about today's episode. I'm basically going to collect 20 episodes and then upload them. So that's going to be that. So yeah, without further ado, I want to say two things, which is, one is you can visit my profile and go into IGTV and you'll find every single thing there, all of the past people there. And after I've done every episode, I basically upload it there. So yeah, if you ever want to give everything a little bit of a view, feel free to go on there to listen to my rantings, to listen to everything, and to listen to the guests and the stuff that we get up to. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce today's guest, which is the one and only Sunil Gupta. I'm so nervous to have him on, but I'm very grateful to have him on. I'm just WhatsApping him right now, so hopefully he's on here. Sunil, if you're on here, great. But yeah, I came across Sunil's work, fun story, whilst being on a date. I went on a date. Needless to say, that date, oh my God, I'm fixing this. Hold on 2 seconds. I'm going to be fixing this. See there, you can see the light. There we go. Yeah, I went on a random date to the Barbican, and there was this show called Masculinities, and behold, I was looking through everything and I was like, where is the representation? Where is everything? And behold, I came across Sunil's work, and I messaged him and tagged him in a post and kind of just communicated. And then when I wanted to start this episode, I was like, let me reach out and see what he says. And I'm very grateful that he's done this, or he's doing this, because he necessarily doesn't have to. And the fact that he's doing it is just amazing. So for those of you who have lived under a rock and do not know of Sunil's work, Sunil is a photographer. By the way, I have my notes and everything here. Sunil is a photographer, a lecturer, and an author of over 8 books, and he's based in the UK. His works have been showcased. By the way, this is a little bit of a bio. Hopefully I don't get anything wrong, Sunil. If you're here, just mind me. Don't mind me. His works have been showcased at the likes of Barbican, which I just mentioned, the Tate, Hills Gallery, Stephen Bulger Gallery, to name a few. I'm just going to read you an excerpt that I read about his work from the autograph, and it describes him and his work beautifully. So I'm just going to read this. His socially engaged projects focus on issues such as family, race, migration, and complicities and taboos of sexuality and homosexual life. His work has been instrumental in raising awareness around the political realities concerning the fight for international gay rights, and of making visible tensions between tradition, modernity, public and private, the body and body politics. As I said, he has over 8 books under his belt, and his work is through researching a lot this week and last week. His work is very autobiographical from what I can see. Sunil sending me a request. Sunil, I'm going to get you on just 2 seconds. Such as Lovers, 10 Years On, From Here to Eternity, Christopher Streets, Exiles, Reflections of the Black Experience, and so many more. But without further ado, I'm just going to get Sunil on here. Sunil, hopefully that was adjusted. Everything. Ooh. Let's see if this is working. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Not bad. It's been a long day, so...
Oh my God. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate this. How was your day? Were you lecturing today?
No, today was more of a production kind of day. I had to go and sort stuff out and get, you know, stuff for the studio, and uh, my flash wasn't working. I had to organize another one.
I know.
I'm shooting a job tomorrow for a magazine cover, so some
Oh
people are
wow.
coming. Yes, I'm fortunate. I've been actually quite busy in the lockdown, so I think visual arts has been active anyway. Not the galleries, but
Yeah.
some of us who make things have been able to carry on.
How has it been for you during COVID? Do you find it? So I just did a shoot, which I just finished, and the whole mask wearing situation and getting COVID tested 3 days before and things like that it's intense.
Well, yeah, it's a bit weird for me because my photography relies so much on other people, and so not being able to meet them at all, that's quite weird. So
Yeah.
that's been a bit of a setback. So I did a few more like video online little projects, and uh, that was okay. And then did one for Studio Voltaire, which we're still trying to sort out, which was unfortunately was like based on Zoom conversations,
Oh wow.
which which was okay. But it's been a while since I've been able to actually work with live bodies and a camera. So tomorrow will be
Yeah.
fun.
Well, I look forward to it. Do tell me how everything went.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited for you, and hopefully you get everything. But your week has been good. I know we talked about recently that you were lecturing, I think last 2 days ago or something. You were doing a lecture of some sort.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I lecture in one course, and yeah, and tutor in another one. So this week was lecturing.
What chai are you drinking, by the way? I've got a nice little ginger tea here. What chai have you got?
Oh, I like black tea, so it's strong.
Oh God.
It's Assam or something like that, or M&S extra strong. That's what this is.
I need things to be like very herbal and very light. I can't like my partner drinks it as well. I don't know how people can have like black coffee or like espressos and things like that. It's a little bit too bitter.
Oh, okay, but not tea.
Not tea. It's just it is. We're gonna get on this. As I said, I don't know if you heard. And I said this to you before. We're gonna somehow keep the comment situation going as well and keep analyzing. But I'm
Yeah.
very nervous about
Oh
this.
no.
Hopefully
Don't be.
hopefully I don't mess anything up. But I think it's just one of those things that like I personally don't know you yet, and I saw your work, and I go on the tube, and there it is, like in all its glory, and now I'm talking to you, and I'm like, it's very much pinch me. But I was just so thrilled and so much like a student this last 2 weeks looking at the Rolodex of the work that you've done, and I've got like questions upon questions and notes and things
Oh
like
my
that.
goodness. Okay.
But I just want to start with something simple, and I wrote this down. It was like through the Rolodex of work that you have, and briefly what I mentioned, and through the activist work that you've done with the GLC, with Ken Livingstone, the books that you've published, the life experience that you have, and I think looking through your work, being one of the people at the forefront of kind of like South Asian queer community faces and the work that you've done, do you ever tire of kind of like these accolades or the work that you've done or certain things that you can be known for? Do you just want to sometimes just be like, I'm just a guy living his dream, I'm just Sunil, nothing else, and things like that? Do you ever tire of anything like that? And is there a pressure for you to create certain work now?
Okay, there's multiple little questions in that. So I'll be really honest, uh, first of all, I wasn't at the forefront frequently because many other people were. It wasn't my job to be at the forefront. My job seemed more like a I was more interested in documenting social justice, and for that you need to be a little bit invisible.
Hmm.
And so I went to meetings and demos and did all of that, but I was not really inclined to be in charge of any part of it, you know. So, for example, when Shakti got going in London, which is the Asian gay thing that became the
Yeah.
Ritu's night, in the very beginning, you know, I was very happy to help out. Uh, Everybody was very young, so you know, I was already senior then, you know, compared to everybody else, except for one of some of the other organizers. But and one of the people who kind of led it and wanted to lead it did want. I remember a conversation where he said, "Let's do this together," and I said, "No, I didn't really think I wanted to do it because." I really want to lead people, you know. And
Yeah.
first of all, I really did gay liberation as a teenager or like as an undergraduate 18-year-old in Canada. And so I didn't want to repeat it here because I feel people have to find out a little bit for themselves that, you know, so today's 18-year-olds need to figure
Find
out.
their
They
own
don't,
path.
yeah, they don't need some old person who's 25 to come and tell them something. So,
100%.
especially from another, so I didn't feel like I had anything to very much to tell them. Uh, so no, so I didn't want to be in that kind of forefront. And the thing that plagues me all my professional life is that I went to India and made 12 pictures of Indian homosexual men because it was pressing personal need of mine to find out what's happening in the motherland kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ever since then, people ask me, what's it like for gay Indians? And I have to remind them that, you know, India has 1 billion people, and I've met 12, you know. That not the pic. I cannot be the I can't tell you what's happening in India. I can tell you what's happening to 12 of them, but I
Yeah.
can't tell you what's happening to the millions of the other ones who I never met.
Right. This is one of the works, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think the way our media works and the way our culture works, and with all of this excess media, that we look for spokespeople or experts. People become experts with data of only five examples. I've seen PhD theses that are based on a handful of people's opinions that become like India is like that. Well, obviously,
Yeah.
how that's not true, you know. But I think it's the nature of our media. Like this happens. Like sometimes when a book gets published or like when the show happens, then I'm suddenly being called upon by more mainstream, like let's say BBC type media.
Hmm.
You know, what's it like in India? I'm thinking, really, just me? You know, like I'm not a sociologist. You know, I haven't studied society in that way. I take some snaps, yeah. You know, so I can tell you about those, and I can tell you about English speaking, middle class, city dwelling guys in the north. You know, that's who I know. I've never really lived in Bombay or Hyderabad or Bangalore. I can't really tell
Yeah.
you. I can guess what's happening there. And what's happening in between is complete mystery to me because I haven't really been there and experienced that. So that way, I try and not be a spokesperson for gay Indians there or gay Asians here because
Yeah.
equally, you know, I just know a handful of people. So maybe I can make a project. Maybe I
You
need to
should.
know more. You know, I feel like
Yeah.
I don't know enough. I know sporadic bits. So I knew about Shakti time and I knew a little bit later on. And then there are gaps in it. And then uh, I'm I'm quite surprised how gay Asians in this country are still so invisible. That does surprise me.
Seriously.
Yeah, because I mean, I've been talking about the 80s, for heaven's sake, when we were trying to become visible, and it still hasn't happened. We have Black Lives Matter, but we don't seem to have Gay Indians Matter or Gay South Asians Matter. No, it's true. I've
Yeah.
been, so yeah, so that's irritating. Yeah, but then I'm not the person who's going to lead some kind of uh, huge activism about it. Maybe you can. You're the right age.
I mean, like, I get into trouble in regards to conversations like that all the time. And I think one of the things we will talk about is this political term, which you have done a project on, which is the life of Black experiences in it.
Yeah.
Whereas I was talking about this with somebody who has actually just recently launched a queer magazine online.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, it's interesting. And one of my questions here was, I think as a community, right, as South Asians who have migrated like second generation or first generations, or as LGBTQ plus people, there's a sort of, I don't know if I can speak for everybody. I just speak from my own experience. There's a sort of, and even being an artist, there's a sort of being wanted to be either accepted or normalized. But then I think within our own sort of communities, we have subsectors. So if you look at South Asian community just as a whole in terms of itself, you have like Malayalis, you have Gujaratis, you have Sri Lankans, you have Pakistanis, and then, there's a hierarchy of system in that within, or like a better of thinking of, what religion is better. And then within queer community, there's like, you have the twinks, and then you have the jocks, then you have the daddies, then you have the bears, and then being South Asian and gay, and then you're being told either you're a fetish or, you're this or that. And then you're always constantly fighting. And I'm just like, where does one fit? Where do you have the fight for what exactly? So yes, you have Black Lives Matter, and yes, you have pride, and then you have Black pride, but then I'm like, where's the Asian pride? Where's the representation for what's happening, in Punjab right now, or what's happening with Section 377? Like, so many things. And right now we're 11 countries, there's still a death penalty for same-sex activity, Pakistan being one of them, or Beirut, or all of these things. And I'm just like, where do we go?
Well,
Do you? Yeah,
if you feel strongly enough about it, you go back to yourself, don't you? You
yeah,
can't rely on other people. That's been my experience. If you're waiting for it to happen, it ain't gonna happen. You gotta make it happen if you feel like something needs sorting out. I mean, I found myself back in India in the mid 2000s, amongst a very new generation who were coming out of graduate school, so maybe in their early 20s. And they were completely different. They wanted change, and they wanted it now, and they were not going to wait. My generation in India said India is like timeless and ancient, and it doesn't change is not what it does. It does what it always did. It's a traditional place. They didn't even think it was possible to change. But now, so then when I suddenly back there after 40 years, I see all this very, articulate demand for change. And they got it in the sense that they did manage to change the law. None of those kids that I knew then who are now beyond marriageable age, let's say, in Indian terms, not because that's a big anxiety.
yeah.
Have not given in. They're not married. They're living gay lifestyles. They're living with partners. They're living with gay friends. It's not that different from some circles of people here in London. So I think that they're leading the way, and they're not following in the footsteps of sad old gay men like me, who got married and played along because we didn't think we had a choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think. So my work, coming back to that has been to try to be in these moments of change and with a camera. So this young group of kids was actually formally organized into an activist group, and they invited me in, although I was older than their parents. So I did. I joined them. It saved my whole experience of being there, so my life was transformed. I had these very interesting, articulate young queer people to hang out with, who's basically chatted about having as much sex as possible, and or otherwise they were discussing politics. Because
Yeah.
loads of stuff needs doing. It wasn't just 377 in gay, but India is full of stuff that needs sorting out altogether. So actually, in fact, I just saw there was something passed me by either in the paper or on social media. Some woman got herself a certificate saying she's managed to erase both caste and religion from her identity officially as a piece of paper.
What, in India or in the UK?
Yeah, in India. No, in India. I mean,
Wow.
so this is how the people are really thinking. So those two things really have to go. Like really, who cares about religion and caste? It really, they have
Yeah.
to put it aside because that's where all these hierarchies come from. I mean, you described this very interesting regional mix, so it should be a positive thing that there are Malus and there are Punjabis and there are
Yeah.
Bengalis and there's people from Sindh and whatever. And why should it matter if they're Hindu or Muslim or Buddhist or whatever, So and then the whole caste thing is ridiculous.
Oh God.
That who's a Jat and who's this and all of that, and that all needs to go as well.
It's interesting you've answered 3 pages of my question already within one breath because I wanted to talk to you about like it's a sin, and you were describing that watching that show and you were like how that is your era, and I just wanted to ask, but you kind of have trail-based that answer, which I was like, do you think that the torch has been passed on politically to the next generation of people to be able to take a stance and I don't know, stand up for certain things, but you've just answered that in a way.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I find, yeah.
Yeah. I will come to a question, which is experience. Let's talk about just queer experience from watching It's a Sin and like when I was growing up and watching things like Queer as Folk. And there were these kind of like
No, I think what I
Yes.
do want to say before I forget is
Yes,
that
please.
when you lived in that period that covered in It's a Sin, do you remember at the beginning some of them were like not feeling part of it?
Yes.
It was something happening over there, and but I think the 80s there was so much oppression from the tabloid press and from the state and from the police and from Section 28 and then from AIDS that it kind of forced a hell of a lot of people to A, come out and B, get together in a way that they might not have. So people were much more like politicized. So when you had if you had a hookup, people would talk about 28.
Yeah.
They talk like it wasn't just people were wanting to talk about this, which is what I found in Delhi just now. People, it wasn't just in the sex, there was also this other stuff. But what I find more recently is that because we don't have those kind of police harassment, Section 28, killer diseases around, people have become, what should we say, a little bit complacent. They think everything is fine.
No, I agree with that.
I think,
I
now
agree with
I like to remind us that everything is only fine because we are vigilant and we have the law on our side. But you saw what happened in India. The law was changed, and it was changed twice. If Boris wanted to change the law tomorrow, he could. Anyone can change the law, So you can't just think, well, it's like an expansive onward. Things get better and better. They don't. Things can do a U-turn. Look what happened in Germany in the 1930s. That is huge gay culture that was destroyed, in the middle of the 1930s.
Do you think it's a kind of, it's just a simple yes or no, but I don't know if I sometimes follow into this. Like I follow politics and I like to be knowledgeable, and I will admit to the fact that I'm ignorant on a lot of things. But do you think that it's kind of, if you're from the LGBTQ plus community, or regardless just of that in today's age, we can't be complacent when it comes to politics and social issues, that we need to be knowledgeable about certain things and not just live in our own sort of little bubble?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's always been that tension because we talk about the community but
Yes.
then half the community is happy just to go shopping. Well, you know, it's like in the 80s when a lot of us who are Asian were black identified in that political post-colonial way.
Hmm.
The first problem was that the other half of the Asians didn't think they were black.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, so immediately there was this crisis. And so you know, so that, but we refer to everybody as the community. I mean, even in not just the Asians, but I mean, look at the mainstream white people. We have plenty of lovely Tory homosexuals. You know, we had a Tory prime minister. I mean,
Yeah.
so you know, there's gay right-wing writers. You know, who spread ideas. So you know, it's not like you know, not everybody's gay and left wing, and you know, trying to, you know what
That
I
is very
mean?
true. No, no,
You
that is very
know,
true. That is very true. Sorry, I thought you had something to say before.
no, no.
Um, I just want to talk about this a little bit more, and then I want to move on to a question, which is, in your last talk, which I watched, which was Artist Talk. I think it was with the Photographers Gallery. You were doing that, and you talked about, oh my God, do I have that quote here? It was in regards to Grindr and oh my God, where is it? Oh, I don't have the quote anymore. But it was just, I think if I'm paraphrasing, it was in regards to the detachment of community that you have nowadays. Now
Yeah.
everything is very much just like bam, bam, bam. Yeah, just thoughts on that, if you don't mind elaborating, because it's interesting you say that, and I talk about that with my partner because he was listening and he was like, just wait, just listen. And I was like, it's interesting you say that because the amount of hookups from all of these apps I have versus the amount of people that I've met who I have genuinely had conversations with and not hooked up at the end. But maybe that's just me as a person that I just didn't want to hook up at the end of it. But is that just a perception? Is that a common thing or yeah?
Well, no, I find that before the apps, when one had to go out physically somewhere, cruising, let's say,
Yeah.
whether to a park or a bar or common or wherever, uh, or to the Hayward Galleries coffee shop. That was a good place in the old days.
Or the
But
saunas, or a
or
good old sauna.
no, but I'm talking about just like casually out and
Oh,
about.
casually.
Right?
Got it.
Yeah. But even the saunas and the bars, so going to a bar. But what particularly strikes me, especially, and I think even more in relation to Asians, and it's even particularly in relation to my Indian experience in India itself, where there are no bars. So then, so you discover places and then which are not labeled, and then you find like-minded people there, and so you begin returning there, and over a period of time, you begin to recognize your fellow homosexuals who also keep returning there, and gradually the space just by existing becomes a kind of communal space where
Mm-hmm.
relationships now start forming from the familiarity of being in the same situation and finally being able to, if you like, meet and just exchange glances or maybe even say hello to somebody recognizably in your own situation. And I think communities need a geography, they need a location. And also these spaces mean that you have no idea who it's going to be. One of the things I loved about cruising and having sex that way is even just going to any random London bar, I don't mean in any extraordinary way, even in the West End or something, you have no idea who you're going to meet.
Mm.
You know, and your own prejudices get confronted that way. You know, I used to be very aggressive at this because I learned the trade in North America, so
What
I
was
was not
it?
you just walk up. I came to London, nobody would speak to you. I would just walk up to them, and they were just terrified. Somebody
Oh,
spoke to me. Oh my God, someone said something. You know, so I would walk up to people, and once this guy said, and I said, you know, like, hello, who are you, and what do you do, and all that. rattling on, and then he said, well, I sell ties in Harrods. And I didn't know what to say after that. I had to kind of take, I thought, that's terrible. I have some lack of understanding and extreme prejudice about this. I have to leave. But so what I mean is that it could be a plumber, it could be a lawyer, it could be anybody.
Very true.
So now the opposite's happening now with the apps because it's a menu-driven thing.
Yes.
So you say exactly what you want, and you can have sizes and all the rest of it, and colors, and you respond like that to people who you might fit the kind of stereotype things that they put up. So the element of, or the possibility of meeting some complete random person you never thought of ever isn't going to happen. I mean, one of my interesting sexual encounters in Canada was with a guy who turned out to be an indigenous rent boy.
Oh, wow.
It never occurred to me that I'd run into someone like that, because like they all live on reservations somewhere. You hardly, if you want to see a native, you would go to somewhere out.
Yeah.
They don't suddenly appear in your street and want to have sex with you. So that was a revelation. And he thought it was very kinky that I was Indian and he was Indian, but we were like different kinds of Indians. So, and he never met one either. I never met one of his. He never met one of mine. We spent the whole time discussing how we were different. So, but had we been on Grindr, that would have never happened.
I think it's fascinating you say that, because I think I have always had that sort of experience with people where I meet people and okay, so I had rules. I don't know if this works in cruising, because I've only cruised a couple of times in my life.
Really?
And there's this famous place in terms of parks, because I think had I not been for apps, I would be a 40-year-old virgin. I would have not done anything. I would have been married with kids. Yeah, because I'm very,
but stuff happens everywhere.
Yeah, but as much as I am in performance, I don't. But in regards to going back to rules, there was this situation I always had. If I was to meet somebody, I would have to walk with you outside for 5 minutes. I would have to suss you. There would be certain questions. There was a whole method. We would have to exchange chewing gums because some people's breaths can be funky, and I don't want that. Like, there were just rules that I had to follow just in order to.
So you didn't grow up giving people blowjobs in bushes or anything?
No. Okay, so this is
you can't be so picky about what.
Can I just say, like. if we're being very explicit, I don't know what it is, but if we're really, I think my partner's on this, and if you're listening, babe, I'm so sorry. I hate blowjobs. I literally hate them.
Really?
I hate them. I don't know what it is. Something about it I just never liked.
Maybe there's classes. You could go to some classes about it. No, there are. I'm sure there are like sex positive classes about it.
Probably. Yeah. I think, there's just something about it from watching. I think like, I don't know, growing up and like having sort of a stigma, which I wanted to ask you, like, I identify as, and it took me a while because when I was growing up, and I'm going to ask you this question, which is, I was very much like, I'm straight, and I'm going to marry. Look, he just sent a laughing emoji. There he is. You're so annoying. When I was growing up, I was very much like, I'm going to get married to a woman. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to have 2 kids. And the picture perfect life will always be, I'm leaving the house. I kiss you on your forehead. You fix my tie, and that's it. But then I started dating girls and I started dating guys. And then I was like, maybe I'm gay, maybe I'm bi, maybe I'm pansexual. Then I was like this. And I think it wasn't until maybe 2 years ago that I've kind of come into going away from my whorish ways, come into like my skin and acknowledged who I am and talked about it with my family and don't care about the perception or the cultural stigma anymore. And I think I associate sex and certain sex acts with that. That is why.
Okay. The shame, you mean?
The shame, the shame of certain things as well.
But what about getting a blowjob?
Maybe.
How do you feel about that?
Maybe. I think because my early this has literally turned into therapy. My early sexual experiences were very much like when I was high, or when I was drunk, or when I would meet. So I think, and
Oh, so
like through,
you didn't know what was happening to you then?
no, through
No,
watching porn. And I think like
yeah.
now that I'm kind of come to senses, it's a whole different ball game. And now it's like trying to understand things. But did you, first question to you, if you don't mind me asking you, and
No,
you can say no, when was your sort of acceptance with who you were, or who you are? Sorry, not who you were. That's paraphrasing it very incorrectly.
no, I'm
And
still
did
around. That's true.
I didn't mean that. I meant it. Or do you still struggle with certain things like, I don't know, talking about it with your parents? I think that I'm 29. I literally just had the conversation with my family. Um, and just certain things like all of my life eating this sort of situation up, like what will my grandmother think, what will my
Oh,
this person think, or I'm not gay, I'm bi, I'm this, no, I'm straight, I'm gonna be with a girl, or like, did you go through this, or were you at a very young age just you
no.
know who you were?
I didn't know who I was because at a very young age, we had no language for it. At a very young age, I was actually growing up in Delhi where nobody talked about it. I never heard any vocabulary, spoken vocabulary around it. But everybody was very physical with you. You know, my dad would carry me everywhere. He was thrilled he had a son and all that Indian father business. And then I had I lived in a little suburb in Delhi. And so all the houses were open and all the kids played out. We never saw the parents.
Yeah.
And so I had my little boy gang from the age of about 6 onwards. I had this little gang of boys and we would hang out, we would play games, and the games would get physical and we were either fighting or we were discovering sex
Oh,
together.
really?
Yeah, and then we would line up. When I was 10, we'd line up and we'd get the smallest one called Pappu or something. And little Pappu would have to give everybody a wank, so like that.
No! Oh my God.
So there was tons of it. And I began to discover at that very early age how I I then discovered the spaces, the places where you can find other people. And then I
Yeah.
got interested in what I thought were like older guys, but no, they might have been 12 or 14, but they felt like older guys. I
Yeah.
think the big difference, I remember the difference was that because we used to all like pretend wank and all of this, but like obviously nothing was happening, nothing was coming
Yeah.
out, so to speak. So then when we met the slightly older ones who actually produced,
Yeah.
something, uh, that was a revelation, so that became more exciting. It was aha, there's something. Because I can remember the first time somebody came in my mouth. That was like, I wasn't expecting, I didn't know that was the consequence. I thought you just sucked it off and then after a while you got bored and you stopped. I didn't realize there was going to be a consequence.
Oh God.
So, yeah, but anyway, it appealed to me. So, I mean, it was very exciting. So everywhere I went, I found I could have sex. And this was in India.
I
In
find that
public
so
transport,
fascinating.
yeah, on buses, on trains, anywhere in a crowd, and I've and you just get a sixth sense about it. And honestly, most Indian men are so starved of sex, they'll do anything with anyone given half a chance. Uh, so, and then women were like not to be touched and all of that. So, and were being preserved and whatnot. And then suddenly, then I was in my mid-teens, at the height of all of this. By now, I'm having like lots of sex. I know where to get it. I know which lanes to walk by and all of that. And I know which kinds of people might catch your eye and all that. And I know when somebody's actually leaning against my butt on a bus with that in mind and who's just doing it accidentally, because, there's all of that. How do you know? And
Wait,
you
I
kind
have a
of develop a
question.
sense about that. And so when I
I
went to
have
Canada, it all came to an end. So
I am
that was very
so sorry
exciting.
to interrupt, but I have a question.
Yeah.
The art of douching has just come in recognition of my like how much there is. And when I was watching that scene in It's a Sin, and you watch pornos or you watch like all of like I was saying, Queer as Folk or all of these movies, there's never any like logic or science behind what you have to do. So whilst all of this is happening, are people knowledgeable about the fact that when you're having sex you have to douche, or it was just like
No, I mean,
happening?
no, when I was a kid, it was happening outside. It was in public. There was no washing or douching or anything. So the first time someone tried to fuck me was when I was a teenager in India, was to throw me behind a bush into some muddy ground and get on top of me, and all, and the only lube we had was spit. And it was a terrifying experience, and I couldn't get him off me. And it was all I remember from that was it was kind of very painful and unsuccessful, probably for both of us. But I remember having my face buried in the dirt, and no, this I never heard of all of this like nice stuff and happening.
Nice, nice.
That all happened in Canada when I eventually got a hold of it. But my first year was a disaster in Canada.
Oh God.
Yes, I didn't know how to I didn't know how to get laid, but there were no public spaces that I could recognize. Everybody walked like a safe distance away from everybody else. There was no casual touching. So none of the techniques I knew worked. And besides, there were foreigners like Westerners in India, but I didn't really think of them as possible sexual partners and all that. So. But then I was very lucky. I moved to Canada in 1969. So I was in the September after Stonewall, literally. So by the time a year later, I was in college. And suddenly I knew the thing that I liked had a name, and it was having a revolution, and everybody was coming out. So at 17, I suddenly came out as well, because I thought, that's me. I recognize what they're talking about. And then I made myself very knowledgeable about it, because there was a lot of activism and gay liberation activity. And we had a student group, and we read papers from sociology, and I belonged to a gay literary society. We read novels. We read as much as we could, because that's all we did as students. In fact, I think I got more knowledgeable than I had experienced at one point. And then it was all very lefty, and then we wrote manifestos about how cruising was so capitalistic and how you shouldn't do that. And so community was all, and so 7 of us from the literary group would go to a bar together and try and find a whole bunch of other guys, so that it was not competitive, 1-to-1, you versus me. No, otherwise what happens is that, a couple of friends go to a bar and then immediately start chasing after somebody else, and then they just dump you there. God. What's the point of, that's not much of an evening. Next thing I know, my friend has gone off with someone, left me high and dry at the bar, There've been many outings like that. So what I mean is that I went from a lot of sex to a lot of politics and with a name, like very fast. So I didn't have time to have shame or have doubts or second thoughts or anything. And at 17, one day I came home and I came out and I said, parents, I'm gay, like you to like it or lump it. And unfortunately, I think my parents thought I was having a crisis, and I was asking for help. So they decided they were going to try and help me, but it wasn't that. And to be honest, my mother just cried, because I think to her, the whole idea that any of her children was having actual sex was like unbelievable, any kind of sex. So her response to anything like that was to weep. But my father, who was trying to be like very sensible suddenly, mentioned therapy. I didn't even know the guy had heard of therapy in his life. He never mentioned it before, and never mentioned it again. Then he said, it's a phase, you get over it. And then in the end, he compromised. He said, look, in our culture, us Asians, you get married and you have children, and then you have sex with whoever you want. Nobody gives a flying... Nobody actually gives a fuck who you're sleeping with. They don't care. What they don't want you to do is to come out. Just shut up and do it. That's what he did. All Indian guys do it. They sleep with anybody. They don't talk about it.
Wait, this is your therapist or your dad said this?
My dad said this. Very pragmatic. He was right, because everything goes on in India. Nobody talks about it. So this idea, I think that the foreign and difficult idea for Asians in the West is that this coming out. Why broadcast it? Why can't you just have your wife and kid and then do it on the side like everybody else does? Everybody has a woman or a man on this side. Nobody has, who has a kind of 50 years of the same, well, maybe some people do, but largely people have some bits on the side.
Yeah.
Of whatever sex, right? So why, you could have your men on the side. So a lot of gay people of my generation in India who are married, so they have this 2 hours between work, office, and dinner
To do things.
to do things, and that's when it happens. And
Wait,
so
so
when
it,
you're in Delhi, if you want to get laid, you just go to a flyover, like Hammersmith in London, and you can wait there. And all these commuters, they get off their motorbikes or some whatever it is, or their cars, and give you a blowjob or whatever, you can get one. And so and you can hide your identity. If you're on a bike, you can keep your helmet on and just have your dick out and have your face covered, and
well,
nobody
now
can
with
see you.
COVID, you can just wear a mask and then you'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah, and nobody
Yeah,
can see you. So yeah.
yeah.
So yes, I
That,
was fortunate that way. So I didn't have to go through this,
yeah.
and then yeah. So that's why when it came to Shakti, I thought I've just done it all somewhere else. I can't now do it all
Start it
over
again.
again. And then this time I wouldn't be doing it as a participant, in a way. I would be advising other like people with different experience in a different context. So that was the other thing that when I grew up, not grew up, but when I landed in Canada, they were having a big crisis about the French and the English. I went to Montreal.
Yes.
So they didn't care about anybody else. So they weren't having an Asian problem.
You talk
So when I
about
came
that a
to,
lot.
so
That
when I came
there
to
wasn't even
London,
Asian. Sorry.
yeah, the Asians were all invisible. They were all in the suburbs doing engineering and computer science. I don't know, whatever, very techie things. Uh, so it wasn't until I came to London that I realized that there's an Asian problem here, that I belonged to a problematic community that people didn't like. And so that puts a whole other shade on it, because that makes it even more difficult in a way. Because one of the things we did at Shakti was people were very afraid to go out on their own on the gay scene because it was so white. I mean, I guess it still is, but people felt anxious. So Shakti was built around, like your program, around chai and samosa. Afternoons on Caledonian Road at London Friend. So that was a convenient time for our young Asian boys to get away from home and not have to explain every minute what they were doing. They could be absent at 4 p.m. on a Sunday. So yes, so then sometimes we would some of us, like older guys, would take a whole bunch of the younger ones out to the West End to some gay bars, and when we arrived in the group of 10 people, that everybody would part. They would all the people inside would move away and create a space. Like it was really strange because I don't think they'd seen this sort of statement by a whole bunch of Asians walking in and trying to occupy a space in a gay bar. No, it's true because they were so rare.
Yeah, I think now. Well, I mean, fortunately enough, there's a lot of nights. There's a lot of nights. There's like Club Kali nights. There's Hangama. There's like you name it. There's nights, and then even clubs will do sort of things. And I think there's a lot of initiative. But yeah.
So yeah, but I just meant like the regular ones, just ordinary West Endy kind of ones. And then for years I've been living in South London, between Vauxhall, Brixton, and all of that. So seeing an Asian is rare.
Is that when you talk about? I think in one of your interviews you were talking about the coming from Canada to here, and you just mentioned it, like the whole Paki bashing situation, which I, to a certain extent, have experienced myself as well. But is that?
So I got sidetracked. Some old auntie friend of mine in Delhi saying something rude about my glasses.
Oh, really?
Anyway, yeah.
Who? God, wait, is it
Chappal
Chapali?
Mera.
Chappal Mera.
Chappal Mera. It was a dear old auntie. Yeah.
He's also asking where's your mustache, which is I can bring it up if I have a picture of it because we're gonna play.
It's become white. That's what happened to it.
Where is your
Can't
mustache? I have
see
a
it.
picture of it. There we go. There's your mustache.
Yeah.
There, Auntie G. Now you can be happy.
Yeah. Actually,
Um.
it's a sin before I wanted to say
Yes. Yes. Yes.
the only one problem with It's a Sin with its styling was that they weren't enough mustaches.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because in 1983, everybody had a mustache. When you went to
Oh.
heaven, the entire place had a mustache.
Wait, how is heaven? Have you been? When was the last time you went to heaven, by the way, if you don't mind me
Oh my
asking?
God, I think in the 90s.
I think that is a very sort of like initiation process. I remember, I think I had my first kiss with somebody ever in heaven.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think actually my first gay experience was in heaven. Shout out to
Oh,
heaven.
wow.
Yeah.
I
There you
can't
go.
remember my first gay experience. Very good.
Can you know? It's because I remember what sort of night it was. I was struggling. I just broke up with my girlfriend, and I was like over 3 months or 4 months, and I was just like, I think I have these feelings. There's this club nearby. I work nearby. Let me just go see what it's about. I went in, kissed the dude, ran out of the room. Like literally ran out and just like went home, did the whole melodramatic, like, oh my God, I'm sick.
Oh,
Yeah, behold to say now here we are. We're going to move on, and I want to talk about some sort of an outlook, how your outlook on relationships has changed, or if you have it, because I was talking about this with you. My outlook on relationships has completely changed, and you're now married. I follow you on Instagram, and you talk about husband G all the time.
yeah.
And you mention it in your work, how you traveled around in the 70s and followed this guy and then settled in London and you've documented. And one of the works, which I didn't know, which is, was it 10 years, from 10 years on that
Yeah.
you've done? And you photograph couples in that. It was in regards to a relationship that had just ended. Firstly, how do you deal with breakups?
Well, it was very
Secondly,
devastating. Yeah. It depends who did the breaking up.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Secondly, do you ever find it challenging to be in a relationship because you're an artsy person? Do you find it challenging for people to understand your perspective and then to have that in a relationship dynamic?
Uh, it's been more, it can be problematic if the other person is doing something entirely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that because, you know, people in the arts have very different hours, let's say, the way they, so my first relationship became very complicated like that because I was living with somebody who worked in a bank in the city and had a pretty much a 9 to 5 life and quite relatively long hours, and it was quite intense. And he needed to get to bed by 10, and whereas at 10, me and my friends was going great guns. So uh, it, so our lifestyles, they were not in sync. So that was becoming a kind of problem like that. And the second one was academic and literary, so that was different. So then that was fine, and he was more tolerant, and he didn't need to get up at 6 and go work in the city.
Yeah.
So he didn't mind if me and my best girlfriend stayed up all night in the bedroom because that's where the computer was, writing grant applications to the Arts Council. So that's the only time we could do it, and he would just try and sleep in the other corner. So he was more tolerant. So I mean, I don't know. It's
Hello. Hello. You there?
hello. Yeah.
Oh, lost you there. There we go. Um, do you think it's challenging to be in a relationship with an artist?
I'm sure it is because they're completely obsessed with themselves. I know I am. And no, it's true. And I'm can behave very badly, and I've been reminded of this. So like, I don't ask my friends how they are, you know. I assume if they want to tell me how they are, they're going to tell me, because I am doing that all the time. I'm always publicly, you know, everything's happening very publicly. So I don't wait for you to ask me how I am. I'm busy telling you. So I never ask you how you are. So uh, that's caused a lot of upset, that I'm not
Wow.
interested in your problems. So I'm just interested in what I'm doing, which is kind of
Yeah.
true. Yeah. I think artists kind of are like that. I don't know if that's a cliche. It sounds like a cliche somehow, but I think they do get very involved, let's say. And it can happen outside of the normal 24-hour clock. So
Yeah.
it can be very disruptive to somebody who's not like that and who's trying to have a 9 to 5 life and all of that. And I've been lucky that there was no children and divorces and all those kind of big financial burdens happening to me.
Oh,
So
true.
I've been able to completely be self-absorbed in myself, because I don't have other people to worry about. I mean, I do now because I got married. So the husband, you know, looms very largely now. But before that, no, I was just. But on the other hand, I didn't. I wasn't very good at being like just endlessly having random sex. I'm not very good at that. So I like to find somebody who I can have reasonably good sex with. Doesn't have to be fantastic. And then I just keep having the same person for sex. So that has created different set of crises in the past. You know, like I've sexually dated somebody for 2 years, and then they tell me that they're now in love. But then I have to say, but this was not about that. I was really just having sex. You know, I was having kind of casual sex over an extended period of time. So that can be problematic. On the other hand, so now if I went to a sauna, then I've been to, you know, when I used to go to the big chariots, I sit by the pool with a coffee and meet somebody and have a long chat, and then I just go home because I talk myself out of doing anything. I just been busy yakking with somebody, like we're doing here, and then that was good enough, and then I'd go home, and then I'd managed not to get laid. So
Wait, so do you have I personally have criteria when it comes to relationships and what I want in somebody as a partner. Did you ever have that, or do you ever have that? Like, for me, it was I was a massive fan. I don't know if you know, there's a performance visual artist by the name of Marina Abramovich.
yeah,
And she talks about the fact, because with Ule, she was in a relationship with, and she says, never fall in love with an artist. She says, never have a relationship with an artist, never do anything. And I don't know why, I've just always listened to that just never have a relationship with an artist, because I think then it's kind of what you're saying, two egos coming together. And sometimes it can be like one is progressing, then one is not. And even though you can support each other, you know, and they can be like the physical act of like sex, it can be great, but just
yeah.
certain things. Or like being in an interracial relationship, I was like, I don't think I could do that, because I want to be able to watch Bollywood movies and speak to you in my language, and not it be like, oh my God, I love your movies, they're so great. Those sort of conversations. Did
Yeah.
you ever have that, or was there sort of like points for you to meet, or you were very much like,
Uh, well, I think for most of my adult life, so uh, my experience of actual sex with other Asians, either here or in India, was very bad. You know, the quality of it. Because once I was introduced to douching and having a glass of wine before the sex in Canada, it was very bourgeois and proper, and hot towels and everything.
hot
And then,
towels? Wait,
and
what's
then
hot towels?
this is Canada. It's very cold and everything. They have central heating at a time when they didn't over here in this country. So it
Oh,
was all
okay.
very, very secure and warm and comforting. And then you go back to somewhere like India, and then they still want to throw you behind the bush. And so I'm thinking, no, I don't think so. I'm grown past this now.
You're on a
So,
premium level. You're now on a five-star married like hotel
well,
situation.
I just discovered the joys of, of things like, I don't know, of cuddling and just of like, the whole play thing and all of that. And so when you go to Asia, South Asia, in the public setting, often there's a sense of urgency because so it has to be over quickly because it's risky being out there.
Yes.
And so most people you meet, their main object is to ejaculate as fast as possible, and then they're done, So I used to have guys through the internet arrive at my front door in Delhi, and I had one guy came in his trousers on the way to the bedroom. So by the time we got to the bedroom, he was done. And then I said, "What?" And they're like, "Not interested in you anymore because they're done." So that's what Indian men can be like, gay or straight. So so I thought, no, thank you. I'm not having sex with this lot. They can sing and dance in Bollywood, doesn't matter, but they got terrible sex. So and so yes. I didn't really have much sex with. I wasn't inclined to, and so it all happened accidentally. I had a show in India in 2004, and uh, and I was seduced by somebody when I wasn't watching, and uh, he was very nice. And then next thing I knew, I was moving to India for his sake. I keep doing that. It's true. I've done this 3 times. I shouldn't do this. It's a very bad idea. I move countries for somebody, which is very daft for a grown-up person to do.
I feel like that's your criteria. You need to be in a relationship with somebody where you can move, relocate. There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a little bit unnerving. Anyway, so then I got to India. Then he wasn't interested anymore. But by then I was in India, so then I just stayed, and then I discovered a whole other side to it. But yeah, I have done. Uh, I guess I have this streak in me, so it's a bit worrying because what if the next guy is from Mexico? I'll be living in Mexico, yeah.
Well, hopefully there is no next guy because you're married.
Oh yeah, that's true. I'm married. There won't be a next guy. And also, I'm really getting on now, so I doubt if there'll be.
I hope, well, this one, he seems very, very lovely. And, I think like I see pictures. There was one picture where he was giving you a haircut and you had a top knot. That
Oh
was
yeah,
very cute. Yeah. And how he's like, I think in one of your talks, you were talking about how he's inclined you to kind of get on Instagram and be more kind of like socially out there.
yeah.
So,
He's more savvy. He's younger and more internet savvy and all that. And
yeah.
uh, but it's been uh, he's been very good to work with. So we're going back to the work idea. We did a
Oh, is he an
collaborative
artist?
project. He's becoming one now. When I met him, he was a social worker, but because of complicated reasons, so we end up here in London. And then the kind of work he did in Delhi, which was to work with HIV people in the underclass, in Hindi, that wasn't going to work here so well. So he went to arts because I'm involved with art schools also. Then it just seemed like, and he was interested in art. I think also because it comes from a different class altogether. So unfortunately in India, not very few people have opportunities to do arts and that kind of thing. Most people have to find some kind of living. It's very quickly after school. So that's what he had to do. So anyway, so he's had the opportunity here to do an art degree. So he did, and now he's doing a PhD at the RCA. So that's great. But in between, we did an art project collaboratively. So that actually did work because it wasn't competitive, and we both took pictures and we both contributed our contacts into the mix and our different backgrounds. So between us, we covered a huge socio-political range. In the city, this was about Delhi. That's that book we did about Delhi. And we didn't take credit for pictures. The pictures are just jointly credited. It's not like my picture or his picture. And then that turned into an art show that has traveled in the US, and it went to India to the Kochi Biennial. So that was
Wow.
quite good, where we could speak in Kochi. So in that way, look, India has changed dramatically. So in Kochi, the two of us spoke as artists, as collaborators, but also as a gay couple who were from India. And we can do this in Hindi, so we can do it in the lingo if we have to.
Mm-hmm.
So, so yeah, it's completely, I mean, since how I remember it in the 80s and 90s as being so oppressive, a lot has changed there.
We're going to move on to your photography career now, and we're going to talk
Okay.
about photography. I always ask this whenever I get people who are from different facets, and whether they're fashion designers, whether they're actors, whether they're dancers, whether they're directors, I always ask them what is their first memory of the career that they have gone into. So like for a dancer, I would always ask, what is your first earliest memory of you seeing a dance sort of situation, whether that is movie or things like that? What would your earliest memory of photography be? And at what age did you kind of, or what point in life did you kind of decide, actually, this is the work I'm going to go into? And then I have a third question, which I can either tell you right now or later, which is, did you intend your work to have the thread that it has right now, or it just kind of naturally happened? So earliest memory, when did you decide, and the narrative of your work? The stage is all yours.
Well, the earliest memory is actually of movies, because that's all I had when I grew up in 1960s Delhi. There was no television, there was no photography gallery.
Yes.
We didn't go to galleries anyway. There was basically, it was cinema, and it was big, colorful, blockbustery, Bollywoody cinema, and there was lots of it. And so that I was really taken by that, you know, and they were very emotional, and I really fancied the guys, and the whole. So I think the idea of color and narrative and storytelling comes from there, because they're such melodramas, aren't they? Basically,
Yes.
and then in terms of photography, I think when I was in high school in Delhi, I had a best friend, and we somehow had some kind of dark room set up for a while, and we both had slightly older sisters, and who used to buy these sort of Indian equivalents of 17 magazine, you know, like teenage glossies.
I love
And
them. Like Teen Vogue.
so, yeah, so they were quite happy to model for us instead of homemade Indian domestic glamour girls that we would photograph. And then that was it. And then that's my earliest memory of photography, literally. But then it didn't seem to be going anywhere as such, except there was a camera in the house. I guess my parents, my father, there were family albums and snaps being taken. And then when we were in Canada, I became very interested again in cinema, because the university had this amazing film program very cheaply you could see everything. So I did it. This now was European and world kind of art cinema, not Bollywood. And then the photography and then I couldn't make films. So I think my first idea was movies, but I was never in a place where it was feasible. They always seem to come from elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But so I had my best gay friend in university, who's also a literary guy, who was also interested in the movies. So he and I decided we would do it with stills. So I bought a camera, and I bought a little enlarger, and then he would write stories or little narratives, and we began to make some work, photo-based little sequences, and then he would write text that I'd put underneath. And it was all to do with being young and gay and our lifestyle, basically. And and then I was educating myself through I was through books, through photo books, how to the technical side and also the art side. And because we were so into gay liberation, I was trying to find some evidence of some gay history of photography, just for myself. And I found one or two examples. And so, but then really I began to take pictures in a public way for for our group. We had a magazine
Yeah.
at college and it needed photographs. And I said, oh, I'll take the photographs. So then I began to photograph, like documentary things, music, demonstrations and voluntary groups and all of that kind of thing. So, and what was going on in the bars. So I did that. And then suddenly I was like semi-professional in the sense I had an audience and my picture would appear. But I was studying business because, I was a middle-class Indian kid and
Still wanting to.
the choices were engineering, medicine, or business. And I figured out business was the fastest degree and the quickest way out of home was business. So I did that. So I have a BCom in accounting, not in art.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I'm an accountant. That's my big secret.
There we go. Now, everybody, guys, please go to Sunil for your self-assessment tax returns at the end of the year. Sunil will take care of all of them. And he'll manage you.
I can do 4-column accounts.
There you go.
That's why I got all these. Later on in London, I was so handy getting all these arts grants because I can do the numbers.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I'm never good at the grant section of it. I just usually have a beneficiary, which I usually just send that to, and then they just take care of that.
So, yeah. So that's, so it was all so that was the early-ish. I've gone beyond the early-ish, but I think the striking thing for me has always been the kind of the color and the storytelling part of that's what I got from Bollywood cinema that stayed till now.
And that still exists. I'm going to go back to when you did your first ever photography job that you got paid for. What did you spend that money on? Just out of curiosity. Do you remember? Was it to buy a lens? Was it you just went and bought yourself a new outfit or things like that? Do you remember what you did with your first ever paycheck?
Well, there are two kinds of firsts. One is when I was putting myself through college.
Okay.
So, I had to I did some work when then went back to art school when I came here. And as I was mature, then 24, I had to do something,
Yeah.
So, and I found an outlet. And then there was the first time I worked after I left college. So I think the most exciting thing I did when I was a student was to have my picture. I was trying to make pictures of gay men in Delhi. I'd gone back in 1918. And I was trying to make some pictures of gay men. Nobody wanted to be in the pictures. It was really impossible. Mm-hmm. So I'd shot my friend from behind and cut his head off in this one of my favorite cruising grounds when I grew up. And I had it in my portfolio and I was hustling, picture editors in London for work. Mm-hmm. And the Guardian guy said, that looks interesting. Is there a story? And I said, yeah, there's a story. And then I rushed home and wrote up 500 words about, the hidden lives of gay men in Delhi. And they published it. So that was very exciting. So having your picture in the Guardian suddenly with your name on it and, there's 1 million copies of it everywhere the next day. So that was my first kind of big credit, in the newspaper.
What did you do with that kind of money of it, let's say?
There wasn't much money, so I think it probably paid for a few rolls of film in those days.
There you go. I have 2 questions before we move on. By the way, are we doing okay for time? Instagram lets us talk for hours and hours now, but if you need to go, I will shorten everything. I have a habit of just talking and talking when I'm enjoying it. So you just tell me, I'm going to shorten everything, but you just you do this and I'll start cutting.
Oh, okay. We've gone over an hour, but it depends how much people can tolerate. So maybe another.
That is true. That is true. Well, Hello? 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 Okay. Yes, I heard you. I'll try and be quick then. I'll try and be very quick, and we'll try and keep things short and tidy and things like that. I have one question with two questions in regards to photography. One is to do with logistics, which is what is your perception now from having done all of the work that you've done, from like having to publish, having to, you know, the legalities of sometimes when you shoot somebody on the street, not having to use their work without having authorization, people stealing work and things like that. And then technology is just developing in terms of like camera. So now having our iPhones just being better sometimes than DSLR cameras or things like that. So one portion of that is to do with that. Then the second portion of it is to do with the relationship of your work, which I find to be very personal. And for me, as a taker, daring, and I am just intrigued to ask you through a lot of work that you've self-documented, such as when you do things which are, I don't know, nude and things like that, when you photograph yourself, do you have like issues, like body image issues? Or when, if you don't mind me asking and saying this, because it's been said in regards to when you've documented your HIV journey and how that has been for you, and has there ever been any sort of backlash or bad critical acclaim, not acclaim, or reviews for it, or any sort of situation in regards to where your friends won't see it or you won't see it? But kind of, so those are the two departments I want to kind of touch on. So one is logistics, and one is like your personal autobiographical work, and how you've decided to put yourself in it, and if there's, yeah, if you ever look in the mirror and you're just like, no, I don't want to take that picture. Why? I just like having body image issues, or like just being like it's gone too far, or yeah, things like that. So you choose which section you want to go into, and I can explain that question a little bit to you more if I'm too vague. But yeah. People are saying, sorry to interrupt, Sunil. People are saying they can't hear you. Guys, hello. Oh no, they can't hear you at all. I can hear you. I don't know why people can't hear you. Guys, need to figure out your iPhone situations. Wait, hold on. Should we take out our earphones and see if that works? Let's see. Hold on. Let me
Do that. Can you hear me still? Yeah. Certainly, I now feel like I've taken on my chumma or something like that. Wait, guys, can you hear us now? Okay, they can hear us. Sunil, say a little bit. Guys, can you hear Sunil? This is so great. I love technology conversations, don't you? Yep, they can hear us now. There we go. All right, continue. I'm so sorry to interrupt, Sunil. They still can't hear you. Wait, let's try. Hello. Say something. Yeah, I can. Guys, can you hear Sunil now? Let's see. Let's see. I'll wait for one. Nope. Guys, what I'll do is I'll carry on this conversation. I will be sharing this on my IGTV. So hopefully the sound will come back on soon. But if you miss anything, I do apologize about this. There's always going to be technology errors. I also don't want to ruin the momentum which Sunil and I are in. So we'll carry on. I do apologize about this. And I'll share this on my IGTV. Maybe you guys can do a lip read. This is lip sync for your life. There you go. I have they. There's two options. You can come out and then do you want to send the request again to me? Yeah, should we do that? Let's try that. So if you leave and then just send the request to me again. Let's have a look. All right, guys, we're gonna work through this. We're in this together. All right. Let's see. Let me get Sunil back on. We're gonna do this. Hello.
Try this again.
All right. All right. Let's see. Sunil जी, अगर आप कुछ कह सकते हैं, please.
हाँ, चलो, कुछ सुनाई दे रहा है आपको अब? सुनाई दे रहा है लोगों को?
आवाज आ रही है?
आवाज आ रही है तुम्हें?
मुझे आ रही है. Yay, there we go. They can hear you.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
carry on, sir.
Yeah, I think maybe it's too much for the memory. We're talking too much. No, I was just saying that, so this printing skill that I had,
Yes.
which was I mean, it kind of, digital came along, and so cameras became, basically cameras want to become smarter all the time and take the picture for you. So I think a lot of people equate photography with the camera and the taking of pictures, which have become completely automatic things. So the phone does take amazing pictures all by itself virtually. So, but as I said, my interest as an artist is in the print making part of it. And that it can't do automatically. So yeah, so I think that's, over the years, I've come to appreciate that print on the wall as opposed to, like that.
Mm-hmm.
That it's on paper and it's something that you live with over time. Oh, hi, Ambika. My niece is there. Good heavens.
Oh, wow.
And I'll try and keep it clean now. I shouldn't be saying anything rude.
Yeah, don't watch the back part. Just watch this part onwards.
So, yeah, so the technology has changed a lot and it's become much more accessible. The photo taking part, and especially, I think when I was doing it in the early days, it was a kind of an elite occupation because it was bloody expensive. The cameras were expensive, buying photographic paper was expensive. So not many people could afford to do it. And I think digital has made it much more accessible. It's more economic and it doesn't cost you to take hundreds of pictures anymore, on a digital camera. And because it's on the phone now, everybody has it. So, and again, in India, that drama played out much more dramatically because the scale was so huge. Mm-hmm. So in a country where there were just a very limited number of studios and professional kind of photographers, suddenly 800 million people have a phone and take a picture. So, they're awash with pictures. They can make their own pictures in a way they never could. So that's quite revolutionary. And we only see some of it. So I don't know if that answers the technological side. So that's kind of kind of progressing, and I mean, cameras almost don't need us there anymore. You know,
Oh yeah,
they
you
don't need,
say that. Yeah.
yeah, and but printing does, because you make a lot of decisions. You know, it's very complex. I've had to I've moved from analog to digital, by the way. So I finally was able to afford to buy a large format printer for the studio here, and I no longer have to go to the labs. So that was very worrying. And there was a time for several years in between when I wasn't doing my own darkroom and I was having to give files to the labs. And then their printers would make things the way they want to make them. And they try to persuade you that, yes, that was the best color they could get and all this. So yeah, so I feel like I could be more nuanced with my work now. So I'm quite liking it. I'm quite excited actually, because I can now, I'm also just getting rid of all my analog cameras. So I'm able to shoot something and print it without going anywhere. It's been very handy in the lockdown. So I can send out prints from here without having to go to a shop.
Can I ask you two questions, please?
Yeah.
One is, in regards to the progression of technology, do you think we're now in a space where you could, or anybody could, because everybody is now a hashtag photographer, when they take pictures through the iPhone, do you think you could actually create a profound or a substantial piece of gallery work just from your phone? One. And two is, has your vision as an artist or as a photographer or an author, all of these titles above and some that I haven't mentioned, have they ever been affected by legal situations? So such as, like, there's a picture you've taken on the street of somebody and they just haven't signed an NDA or any sort of thing, and you just can't use that image, or because of funding there's a sort of like a backlash, or financially you just can't carry out a situation. So yeah, those two questions. One, can you do a gallery?
You
Or
can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. I think there's basically an image is an image at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if it came from a phone or a Hasselblad camera, so it's yeah, I'm not bothered. I'm very promiscuous. I use anything that's available to make the picture with. So that's the first part. And the second part is, yes, when I shot Christopher Street, there was a naivete and there was a kind of thrill about it. And the idea of the street picture was becoming, was entering the museum world. So documentary, that kind of photography was being collected finally by the people like the Museum of Modern Art, and was gaining a kind of legitimacy in the art world. And now, of course, it depends where you are. There's certain limitations that have been placed. A lot of questions have been asked about the ethics of taking pictures without people's consent. Mind you, people have gone from this part of the world to the third world for decades and taken pictures of everything without asking anyone anything. But anyway, but I find, like in France, it's very strict. When I made Sun City at the Pompidou Center, we had to get signed permission for everything, even the location.
Oh, yeah.
When I shot in a park, we had to get the park people's authority, everywhere for everything. When I shot in a building, we had to get the architect's authority. It wasn't just the people.
This is Sun City, if I'm correct in saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actors. So this was a commercial production. I'm surprised you can show that on Instagram and they're not going to ban you. Okay, yeah. 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 So have I had any specific? No. So in England, it's a bit different. So if you're in a public street, people can take pictures of you. Uh, you can, but they can't take pictures of you in a private space. So I can't like look over your wall and take a picture of you in your back garden. But if you come out on the pavement, I probably can. And the other key difference here in England, I'm more familiar with England because I've been based here, is that you certainly can't use those public pictures to sell a label. Uh, uh, oh, okay. You'll have to get a better phone or something. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So so I can't use one of my pictures of the street to advertise Levi's jeans or something. You can't sell a product like that. That's definitely not allowed. So, but I could put it up in the photographer's gallery and say it's photography. Yeah. Yes, I'm very aware of where I am. So there's different taboos in different contexts, but there are always some taboos. I've never been in a place where you're completely able to talk what you want to, so or show what you want to, for example. So, for example, I have a picture of a lesbian couple with a baby, which we showed in Delhi, Indian lesbian couple wearing saris, but with the baby, uh, and the baby's naked, and we placed him on a pedestal like a cherub, and showing that picture in India is no problem, but you can't show that in the West because you can't have a naked baby. I'll be arrested, So different cultures have different kind of boundaries about things. One of the biggest boundaries I face here is that I can't talk about my wonderful gay childhood because I was underage and everybody would think about it as abuse. But I am going to have a show about it in Delhi. But let's see if we can have it here. Can a 10-year-old talk about his sex life 50 years later? That's tricky. So you know what I mean? So people go berserk over here. No. Yeah. Well, I did that for therapy also, because I was sick, literally. And I find going into the dark room and doing photography healing for myself. It was part of my own. So the process of making it was a healing process for me. And then of course, because of my generational background of the whole gay lib coming out business, I'm very conscious that wherever there's stigma about something that you have or you're involved with, the best thing you can do is come out about it. The worst thing you can do is bottle it up inside. So I've had no issue telling everybody I was positive, and that became a problem in India because there was so much stigma that middle class people would say, I'm inviting you home for supper, but do not mention it to my parents. They'll really freak out. Like, don't tell them that. Because I used to tell people, and I decided to tell people in a very random way because people casually ask you, the first thing people ask you is, how are you, right? And I began to respond by saying, well, I'm HIV positive, but it's not acting up today. I'm fine. And then, and then Joe would drop off and he didn't know what to say, and then the people used to be afraid of you. Remember, people were afraid of being near you and all that. So that was all, so that was fine. I think that the naked picture was difficult because I'd never done that before. And the reason why it's me also is because one of my problems here has always been a bit like India, is that no gay Asian wanted to be in the pictures back in the 90s. Nobody was out enough, because who knows where the picture will go, because I can't promise you that it's going to be just in the photographer's gallery, nobody will see it. Because of course, everybody now goes and takes a picture of the picture and it puts it on the internet. You have no idea who's going to see it. So basically, it was very hard for me to find Asian subjects. I think I found 3 people in the whole decade who were willing to be in some pictures. And then to be naked, and then to be HIV, definitely not. So I ended up using myself. And so at first I was kind of nervous about it, but once I saw it up, I realized that actually it wasn't me, it's a kind of avatar. And it gave me a way of dealing with it through the photography, through the picture, that I could discuss the illness in that art project-like way, even slightly clinical way, and not feel personally, like it's literally. I didn't think it was literally. It was me, which was handy because several people had very mean things to say about that picture, like maybe I should have gone to the gym before I took that picture or something. And obviously, I'm not the most well-endowed person, and not that we as a group are known for that either. So I wasn't a good advert for Asian willies, that's for sure. So, but I don't care now. I let them think whatever they want. So that's me. Uh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. That it never stop. I have too many stories I want to tell and more books that I want to make. And it's tragic that I'm 67 because I feel like I better hurry up and start telling the rest of the stories before the time runs out. Okay. Uh, well, I think definitely one of them is having this retrospective at the Photographers Gallery. It's a gallery I've been kind of involved with ever since I came here. And many crucial things happened there in the 80s and in the 90s. And they've allowed me to curate shows there and bring other people's work there. So they're a great bunch of people. No, I don't see it. Uh, uh, I'm not sure. I don't know what the reason is. I see a lot of in theater. I see quite a bit of not. I mean, not that I go out a lot to see it, but the last few times I've been to places like the Globe or something to see even Shakespeare. It's been a very diverse cast. And it's a bit like Bridgerton. Half the people would be black actors. It doesn't matter the role, kind of thing. But I don't see Asians acting like that. Asians only act Asian. Uh, and there are not that many Asian characters yet. Uh, so there's, I can't remember if there were many in It's a Sin, were there? Yeah, yeah. But Shakti was there. We were there. I mean, in real life, but we're not in that program. And we have to make our own program. That's my plan. Yeah.